What's up, guys? It is a wonderful evening tonight. So, I've been thinking about some other things I've spoken about before in my blog, and one of those things is neuroplasticity, the idea of synapse pruning, and with your actions being creating these new balanced pathways. And so, let me talk about that for a minute, especially as it relates to some spirituality type of stuff like chakra balancing. Yes, I said it. Chakra balancing. Okay, so yeah, you're going to have failures. You're going to have setbacks when you're trying to change something about yourself. This is absolutely a given. But if you know anything about neuroplasticity and synapse pruning as it relates to creating these new pathways, and avenues in life, whether that be like fitness, finance, emotional or mental health, including these spirituality ideas of chakra balancing, you feel a little bit better about when you have those setbacks, right? So y'all know that I'm a science teacher. If you don't know, there it is. And so I like to mix the two. I like to mix and educate people on, okay, there's a science behind some of this spirituality stuff, right? So when you connect the dots between the two, it makes better sense in some people's minds, and so it's helpful. So I enjoy sharing those connections. And so basically, neuroplasticity, if you don't already know, is the ability for your brain to change throughout your lifetime. A lot of people think of your brain as, oh, you're this certain person, you were born this certain way, this runs in your family. Maybe it's like anger, right? Maybe it's anxiety. Well, yes, sure, some of that is true, but neuroplasticity is basically the idea that you can change these things about yourself, right? And so basically when your brain is active and you're in these certain modes and these functions, the activity can transfer from one location to another. You just have to practice that. So there's this idea of synapse pruning. And so synapse pruning is when you can weaken those pathways that you'd rather not take in your brain. For example, let's say you practice when you have anxiety certain strategies, right? And over time, those strategies help to lessen the likelihood of you being anxious in a certain scenario. So the same thing applies for all behaviors. Let's say you have a self-confidence issue. If you have a self-confidence issue, you use the idea of neuroplasticity and synapse pruning to help you be less self-confident, less like a better image of yourself, right? So no matter what you're trying to do, let's say you're trying to, chakra balance, maybe it's a fitness goal, maybe it's a health goal, maybe it's an emotional growth from trauma, right? You can change these things about yourself knowing the idea of neuroplasticity, the idea that your brain can change throughout your lifetime, and the idea of synapse pruning. All right, so basically research shows that many aspects of your brain can be altered through adulthood. And so it can grow. You can build yourself into excellence. You can build yourself into a better person by using that idea. These pathways can be pruned like a plant in your brain. If you don't use those neural pathways, you can prune them over time by not using them. And just the opposite, you can create new pathways by opening up those ideas and practicing them and practicing them and practicing them and continuing to practice them. And as I said in the beginning, yeah, there's going to be failures, there's going to be setbacks, but that's okay. That's normal because you're still in the process of pruning your neural functions to the best, to what you want. Okay, and so let me take a moment to basically help you understand in more layman's terms what that means. So you pretty much have an autopilot of what your behavior is like because you continue to utilize these behaviors over and over and over. And so that's your autopilot. That's my daughter in the background. Sorry. Yes, she's 7. So let's say you have this autopilot of anger, or you have this autopilot of anxiety, or you have this autopilot of a poor self-image. You can change that by changing your autopilot, which essentially is neuroplasticity, okay? And the idea of synapse pruning. So I'm going to take that even further to the spiritual world since I've been on that kick recently. And I'm going to talk about your chakra balancing. I'm going to talk about the solar plexus, to be specific, which is all about creating healthy self-confidence, okay, and self-esteem. So if you missed the first portion of this, that's okay. Just go back and watch the video about neuroplasticity and synapse pruning. So let's say with a healthy solar plexus chakra, when it's balanced, you have a healthy self-confidence and you have a healthy self-esteem. It's not over egotistical. It's not under either. It's perfectly balanced. Now that's not necessarily typical for everyone, right? This is a work in progress for most people. And so without it being balanced, you kind of view yourself, if you're on the lower spectrum, you view yourself with a poor self-image. You might look at the mirror and see like inaccurate physical flaws, maybe body dysmorphia. You might also not necessarily physically be down on yourself, but you might be emotionally down on yourself, maybe financially down on yourself. You're doing things in your life that you don't love, and so you're like, wow, I could have did that better, or I'm terrible at this, and this, and it's just a negative self-image. You could also feel powerless as well, and so that's something. If you have a underactive solar plexus chakra, that's what occurs then. Let's say it's overactive. If it's overactive, the opposite side of the spectrum would occur. And so this means that you're critical of others. You are egotistical. You're on a high horse. You're power hungry. Neither of those options is great, right? Neither of those options are a great thing. So you want to try to have a balanced solar plexus, right? In the spiritual world, that's what they call it, okay? So understanding those characteristics of what it means to have a balanced solar plexus chakra is really important. So understanding those characteristics, healthy self-image, healthy self-confidence, right? So you understand that. So coupling that knowledge with positive affirmations, continuing to consciously give yourself positive affirmations, and being persistent and determined with telling yourself these things consciously. Your subconscious is going to continue to take that old pathway because those synapses were not pruned yet. It takes time to learn that new pathway. But if you continue to tell your conscious self, you are beautiful. Yes, you have these flaws, but everybody has flaws. And you know what? Perfection doesn't exist. And so you're continuing to feed these positive thoughts to yourself over and over and over and giving yourself these positive affirmations. Be persistent, be determined, build that new autopilot, okay? Your brain is changeable. Use the idea of neuroplasticity to create a better you, being determined, being persistent, to balance that chakra with positive intentions. And over time, you will build that new pathway. Those synapses, those old ways of thinking, those old synapses will be pruned. As long as you tell your conscious over and over and over and over, your conscious self, what you should think, okay? Your subconscious will eventually follow suit. Yes. So that is my idea behind science, your brain, neuroplasticity, synapse pruning, and as it relates to chakra balancing. Now, we know there's a lot more that goes along with chakra balancing. For example, there's crystals that you can use to heighten that energy, to higher vibrations. There's tons and tons of meditation-like tools that you can use to help yourself. This is just one extra tool in your toolbox, guys. So I hope it does help you. I appreciate you all. Let me know what you think.